So which one do you want to begin with?
Um, Basically, I'm just showing you the path. We're going to begin with the outer four. Oops, not on that page. Hold on. To go to the. There we go. Hmm, Stop screen share. Did you see your profile there for a second?
Yeah.
All right. You already know what that part is. Let me get out of this.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm going to take off my background. Hold on just a second. Oops. There we go. Now I
Mm-hmm.
don't look like a ghoul. It does some weird things with the lighting.
Oh
Okay, so the first part of your path, as we go through it, these are all the notes that I take.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
The first part of the path is what does it mean to be a 1-4? Those are your primary gifts in life. The one is called the creator
Mm-hmm.
or the warrior in human design. There is an absolute need to know. It's the investigator, so it has to understand and know why what is what it is. So it requires having a solid foundation. Like when they're building the bridge out there, it has to have the concrete slab, whatever that is, whether that is how to be a puppy, how to um, how to be good at some specific trade. Say you want to be a plumber,
Mm-hmm.
you have to study and learn and have the foundation first.
Exactly.
And that goes with everything in life. Um, what is the best for you is when people give you all of the information, when they're transparent
Mm-hmm.
and they're giving you honesty and directness, which means they're not having hidden agendas. They're not doing something in order to get you to do something. Those are the type of people that you have to surround yourself with. If they're not giving you that, then you got to cut them off. One of the thing is shadow sides of the first line is that they are afraid of their own potential. Means you have greatness within you, but you're afraid of it.
Mm-hmm.
Your own inner certainty. That means you know for sure you are whatever. Um, One of the things that the first line needs is to feel grounded, is to be grounded and feel grounded in order for them to feel a sense of safety and to be safe. The wound of the first line is insecurity. And the way insecurity is healed is with honesty. Not only honesty from people outside of yourself, but really looking at yourself and being completely honest with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Your gifts in your life work are vitality. Do you understand what that is?
Yes, sir.
Um, and your gift in your. Ooh, where'd you go?
Hold on one second. I had to take my shirt off. Right here.
Your gift in your evolution is restraint. Do you understand what that is?
Hmm.
Tell me.
I
To
already know.
practice to
Mhm.
practice restraint. What does that mean?
Look, I have a lot on my mind. I just don't want to get into definitions of things right now because I end up saying the wrong shit or whatever.
No,
But yeah, I've been practicing my restraint.
it doesn't mean being tied up.
No, not like that.
Okay.
That's one of them, but not.
Once you start to work with your your evolution, you deal with your radiance, which has to deal with your health.
Hmm.
But it's the breakthrough from really sinking down into understanding, well, the shadow is stress and the gift is restraint. Once you have that breakthrough, then the gift is integrity in your radiance. And that has to do with your health and what emanates from you.
Hmm.
The fourth line is called the networker. It's also called the opportunists, and it thrives best in community. The wound of the fourth line is being rejected. What is the what is the healing of rejection? I think it's gentleness. You know, not everybody's going to dig who you are or what you do,
Hmm.
and it doesn't matter. You know, you being gentle with yourself rather than taking on that rejection is a part of you being keeping yourself healthy. The four thrives when it's part of community and it's being of heartfelt service.
Hmm.
Heartfelt service could be anything. It could be volunteer work, it could be in relationships, it could be, but that needs to be a piece of the networking. When you give, you don't give to get, but that is a byproduct of giving of yourself. Um, the fourth line responds best to integrity, honesty, softness, romance, and love. Not only from people around you, but from within. You have to have that internal integrity, that internal self honesty, that internal softness, and that internal love.
Excuse me.
The shadow side of the fourth line can be that you give too much or overgiving, or you're giving to manipulate. It's like, I'll do this so that you'll do this for me. Or corruption. All of those are an aspect of the fourth line as well. The absolute most important key for you to remember is self honesty.
Hmm.
And not only with yourself, but with others. And that's called intimacy. Okay. One thing about the fourth line, it can hide behind fixed views or judgments. And the way that's healed is through honesty and being open.
Exactly.
Now, the your purpose in life is farsightedness. That is the gift. And with the fourth line, it has in the bottom position, it ends the first sequence and it begins the second sequence, which is right here. Now, the second sequence is called the Venus,
Mhm.
and the Venus is all about how you love and how you are in relationships and what in your childhood development made you what you are now, the good and the bad.
Exactly.
Okay, your purpose in relationship is to be the nurturer and to take care of.
Hmm.
Or the shadow side of that is the politician. And the
Mm.
politician is, well, how are you today? And you're, I'm fine. You may be going through all kinds of shit and
Yes,
not open and honest and sharing.
exactly.
So that's something to pay attention to. When when am I being a nurturer and when am I being a politician?
Wow.
Those are all choices that you make. This, the next sphere is called the attraction sphere. It's why are people drawn to you? What energy do you hold that makes people come to you? Um, and you have a first line there. It's back to foundations and investigations. And the first line in the attractions field deals with sterility or fertility. Did you understand those two words?
You mean fertility?
Fertility.
Or yeah.
It's you have the ability to birth things. Or sterility is dead puppies in sterile.
Mm.
The gift you have there is the ability to transmute,
Mhm. You
either
say
you're very
transmute?
excited or bored.
Oh no, I'm just kind of hungry. Did you say transmute?
To transmute. Do you
Yeah.
understand what to
Okay.
transmute is?
Can you define that?
Okay, this is a cigarette. You have the ability to change this into something else. Now it's garbage.
Mhm.
It changed. That's transmuting.
Okay, I got you now.
Okay.
I wanted to make sure.
Um, Now in your IQ and your EQ, do you understand what those two are?
Hmm.
There's IQ, EQ, and SQ. The last part of your development, probably in your from 12 to 17-ish, is when you mentally develop your mental capacity, your intellectual quotient, how you think. EQ is about
Emotion.
emotional quote, and that develops from age 7 to about age 12. And the SQ is your soul or your spirit, and that develops from age 0 to from the time you're born till about age 7. Okay, so in the IQ, you have a third line. The third line is always about trial and error. It's about making mistakes. It's about failing and learning from the failures. Um, the third line in the IQ talks about having a flexible mind. It means it's not really set in one specific way. It can it has the ability to change, flexibility. Um, and the shadow side of that is that it can be evasive, means running away from or avoiding. Um, the gift that you have the same key in both your IQ and your EQ. The gift there is anticipation. It's like you're anticipating your caller coming. That is a gift to be waiting for something that you know is going to happen. The
Shit.
shadow, huh?
I had to, I guess my phone did remind me about the doctor today.
Okay. The shadow side there is fantasy, and you have it both in your IQ and your EQ.
Uh, excuse me.
Do you understand what fantasy is?
You can elaborate.
Fantasy is reality is this,
Hmm.
but you in your mind, it's the way you want it to be. It's a fantasy. It's over here. It may be outside of reality. It may touch reality, but it's not real.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And this is an important key because it's basically how you think and feel. There can be a gift within understanding fant- that you process things with a fantasy. It's like, the way children think.
Hmm.
They have that magical thinking that has its place, but for, survival and connection and um, making your way through life, it's a need to really understand that piece. And when is it showing up and how is it showing up? The last piece, oh, and you have a fifth line in your EQ, which is emotions, which has to do with respect on one side and disrespect on the other side. So that goes good with fantasy, you know, even though it may not be real for other people, you still want it respected.
Exactly.
All right. Um, as you go into your SQ, you have the second line, which is freedom, and it can
Freedom.
be freedom,
Okay.
um, and it can go from wildness to boundary.
Wow.
So having, like we were talking the other day about a river flow, the river can't
Mm.
flow without the banks of the river. The
Exactly.
banks of the river are the boundaries.
Hmm.
And if the river doesn't operate within those banks,
Nothing fun.
it's pretty much a mess.
Exactly.
Or a waterfall,
Oh,
which
wow.
can
Yeah.
be, which can be beautiful, but
Hmm.
how do you contain it? You can't.
Exactly.
Um, and the gift that you have there is insight. Insight. Do you understand what the word insight is?
Hmm.
All right. The last part of the Venus sequence is when you were born. What from your ancestors' DNA did you bring into this life that is the core wound of that experience? And for you, it's a first line again. You have a lot of first lines. The first line has to do with depression. That's what was brought in your DNA. And depression is healed with honesty.
Oh,
Do you hear a core something within all of this so far?
yes, sir.
Honesty.
Hmm.
Um, Now, the core wound also goes into your what's called the pearl sequence. There's three different um, pieces that make up the pearl. The top of it is your life's work. This one here is called the vocation or the core wound, what you brought in your DNA from your ancestors. And the gift there is strength.
Wow.
And as a first line, it's the producer. The producer is the one who sets everything up. And think of it in movie terms. The producer is, okay, you need to feel this and portray this as the actor. Lights, you need to be over here. Camera needs to be over here. It's it's the foundation of what the film is up to the producer.
That's a great
And your
man.
gift there is strength.
Mm-hmm.
The shadow is force. You can't make those things happen,
Exactly.
but you have the strength to hold it until it is that.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Very
Okay.
much so.
Okay, culture. And culture can be anything. It can be your puppies. That's one culture. You're an American. That's a culture. You have a family. That's a culture.
Uh-huh. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. My phone
You can
slipped.
be you can be in business. That's a culture. You can be black. That's a culture. It could be any ethnicity. All of these things are cultures. Now, your gift there is the fifth line. Excuse me. And the fifth line has to do with society.
Can you see me? Cause
Yes,
all right, cause it was a little dark over here.
it's fine.
All right.
Um, the fifth line is society, and the gift that you have is sensitivity.
Huh?
So, with in regard to culture or family or networks, you have the ability to tap into sensitivity and sort of an understanding. You get it.
Yeah.
Then that goes back up to your life's work. Shoot, I need to look up something. I forgot. The life work is your brand, and you have a first line there. So in your um, okay. So the in the brand of the what makes you the pearl is about prosperity.
Mm.
And prosperity can mean lots of different things. It doesn't necessarily mean a lot of money,
Yeah.
although people with a lot of money are prosperous.
Mm-hmm.
But people who have a lot of intelligence are prosperous.
Mm-hmm.
People who have a lot of love are prosperous.
Exactly.
People who have a large network that they're connected to are prosperous. And one of the keys for the life's work is also called what is your brand? And your brand is the first line, and it's about boldness or security. Now, you can't directly get to the pearl, but
Yeah.
once you start to study the gifts and the shadows of the pearl, which is strength, sensitivity, and vitality, Then the pearl happens, which for you is a third line. And the third line in the pearl is about celebration. And the gift that you have there is revolution. Do you know what revolution means?
You can elaborate
Has
more.
has a couple of revolution. One definition of revolution is going around. Another definition of revolution is everybody saying, fuck the government, we're going to create our own government.
Yes.
And revolutions can happen in a lot of different ways. It doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean governmental, but the rules of a company, the rules of how to be a puppy, or those are all things that can evolve and have. Revolution is a piece of evolution, changing, and you have changing it, transmutation as a gift. So are all these things kind of connecting now into a clearer picture?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, that's about it. Do you have any questions?
Mm, I might study some more of my gene keys, but I just need you to figure out which ones would be best for me to study right now.
Well, actually, the one that stands out to me the most is fantasy as the shadow. Hold on a second. I'm going to read a little short story about that.
Okay, sir.
It was over here. Okay. Which one? 41. And here I'll go into storytelling mode of the old sage.
Good stuff. Mm,
Genius manifests while non genius just dreams. The gift is anticipation, the shadow is fantasy,
mm.
and the acidic level is emanation. If I say any words that you don't understand the meaning of, just ask.
All right.
It has the programming partner of the 31, the story. I grew up in, and it's showing the picture of this woman.
Wow.
She grew up in an impoverished and drought stricken village. My parents owned a small farm and were able to provide the villagers with eggs and milk and a listening ear.
Oh, that's nice.
As a young child, I heard countless stories of people living their lives in quiet desperation. While most young girls dreamed of marrying and having children, I closed my eyes and imagined myself a priestess of a great temple,
Oh,
laying my hands upon the sick, using my psychic abilities to reunite people with their destinies,
very
and
noble.
bringing fertility back to the entire land. But then I'd open my dreamy eyes and felt overwhelmed by the heaviness of reality. For years, I filled my mind with visions of a glorious future in order to keep the pain of the world away from me. I drove myself relentlessly with an unrealistic fantasy, reading every book I could find on healing modalities and sacred plants. I even sneaked into the forbidden library to learn about ancient ceremonies that initiates entered sacred bridal chambers and left their bodies to return again, awakened.
Mm.
My sisters became wives and mothers. I became I became hyperactive and a bundle of nerves
Oh,
and
wow.
unable to deal with stress.
Exactly.
I disregarded my body's signs of fatigue and I
Wow.
kept pushing forward
Mm-hmm.
until I could barely eat, much
Uh,
less study.
mm,
I
mm.
lost my strength as well as my faith in the impossible and
Wow.
isolated path that I've chosen. To make things worse, my mother fell ill from having cared for me for so long.
Mm-hmm.
One day our family's One day to our family's shock, a priestess from the great temple knocked on our door. She was magnificent. She was a magnificent, radiant being who was told during a meditation to travel to our home on foot. She floated her hands above my mother's chest, and I watched in awe as the spark in my mother's eyes returned.
Wow.
In that moment, it dawned on me that in all the years that I had spent filling my mind with knowledge, I had never dared to apply any of it.
That's so true.
I was too terrified to try and to fail. A wave of shame came over me,
Mm.
and I realized how powerless I was to even help my own mother. As if she could hear me thinking, the priestess pierced my eyes and soul and said, "Dear child, you cannot do this work with your mind, nor can you do it by yourself, alone." Then she took my hand and said, "I came for your mother, but I also came here for you."
Wow.
That day marked the beginning of my true apprenticeship
Mm.
and my life's work. The gift in this story, to tell you what the story is about,
Mm-hmm.
I, I come when it's time for a new experience, a new world, or a new chapter that is beckoning you. Every cell in your body is
Intricate.
intricate, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
intricately linked, just as every impulse within you is communicating to the whole of creation. If you listen carefully, you can anticipate what is coming, as well as what you truly need.
Mm.
You hold the key to your dreams in your own hand, and you are the one who is responsible to turn into your own. But remember, you are not here to manifest your dreams on your own.
Mm.
Allow others to participate and take one small step at a time. Pace yourself, ask for help,
What exactly?
practice restraint,
Mm-hmm.
rest when you need it. Don't overdo things, but don't underdo them either.
Mm. So profound.
Do not expect things to turn out how you imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Then embrace the thrill of anticipating what will happen next.
Ooh.
Some questions for you to contemplate or think about. Where in your life do you tend to feel too full or too empty?
That's a great question.
Do you tend to go back and forth between the two?
Hmm.
Do you fantasize a lot but
Sometimes.
have difficulty making things happen in reality?
Yes, sir.
Are you so driven to manifest your dreams that you will burn yourself out? Track your thoughts in a journal today. How much time did you spend obsessing about the future or rehashing what happened in the past? Share a dream with someone you trust. Let them in and let them influence and shape the direction of that dream.
Wow,
Well, that is it for your guidance.
that was amazing.
And just keep in mind, this is just the very tiny tip
Yes.
of this
Yeah,
information. There's a lot more to learn if this is a path that you're interested in.
yeah, I just haven't had time
And
to study this, but I want to study with you more if you're open to that.
yeah, all right, I'm going to stop the recording